I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers.
Let's begin our show with the economy and the battle over tariffs and that ongoing volatility in the financial markets. On Wednesday, U.S. stocks did close higher amid hopes the Trump administration was softening its stance on this trade war with China.
Over the past few days, President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent have indicated a willingness to do a deal with China. But this morning, Beijing says there have been no discussions with the U.S., despite the president saying yesterday that the White House was actively talking with China. Here's more of what the president said.
We're dealing with almost all of them. Too many to fully deal with, but we're going to be fair to them. But we're dealing with a lot of countries right now, and could be with China, but maybe we'll make a special, a deal. It's still 145. I haven't brought it down. I said it's a high tariff. It is a high tariff, but I haven't brought it down. It basically means China's not doing any business with us.
Joining us now on all this is NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez and Investopedia's editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. Good morning to both of you. Gabe, I'll get started with you. It seems like the Trump administration is trying to ease these trade tensions with China, clearly, but walk us through what we've been hearing from the president and others on potentially actually lowering them or doing some type of deal with China.
Hi there, Savannah and Joe. Good morning. Well, as you said, this has been a back and forth that we've been hearing over the last several days. And President Trump saying yesterday that these talks were actively underway. But just a few minutes before he told reporters that, his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, had said that, no, those talks were not underway just yet. And then a senior administration official told NBC News that they were underway just at lower levels, sub-cabinet levels. So there's still a lot of questions about where we're at right now. But the president yesterday saying that, yes, indeed, they are underway. And depending on how things go over the next couple of weeks, there could be a lowering of those tariffs with China. That's backing off a position he previously had, where the administration insisted that those 145% tariffs were what they were going to stick with. But again, the president hearing from business leaders over the last several days. On Monday, the CEOs of three top retailers, Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, coming to the White House talking trade. The administration seems to be softening its tone when it comes to China. Savannah and Joe.
So, Caleb, we have this softening tone, but we also have China saying there haven't been any talks yet. A lot of back and forth, a lot of uncertainty. How is that playing out in the markets?
Yeah, just listen to what companies are saying. We're right in the middle of earnings reporting season, kind of report cards for the last quarter. PepsiCo is saying it's reducing its forecast. It can't depend on how consumers are going to be spending into the next quarter right now. We're also hearing anecdotal stories about people not tipping less, planning less summer vacations. So you're already feeling people getting a little bit tighter with their wallets because they're uncertain as well. So when you hear it from companies like the airlines saying, hey, it's reduced luxury travel, we can't even give you a forecast, and Pepsi saying we can't give you a forecast, I think that's what's rattling the markets a little bit, because if companies can't see the future, how can investors see the future?
Gabe, it also seems the president's set to face some more legal battles after a dozen states filed a joint lawsuit to stop these tariffs. What are they arguing, and has the White House said anything on that?
Look, Savannah, yes, those 12 states sued the Trump administration, most of them led by Democrats, of course, but they're arguing that these tariffs were hurting the states' economies and their residents. They're saying that the tariffs are upending the constitutional order here. The White House is pushing back, much like you'd expect. They're calling this a witch hunt, saying that they will push back strongly against any attempt to stop these tariffs, and that it is up to the president and his administration to deal with foreign policy. This is something that President Trump has been talking about really for decades before he even entered political life. And so they feel they're well within their authority to enact these tariffs. Obviously, these 10 states are disagreeing right now, Savannah and Joe.
So, Caleb, if we don't see any trade deals soon, what is that going to mean for consumers? Could we start to see shortages of some products, even empty shelves down the road?
Yeah, but for different reasons than when we saw several years ago, right, during the pandemic, when everybody was trying to hoard and buy as much as possible. Why? Because it's called demand destruction, right? If consumers are feeling tighter, if we're spending less, if companies can't forecast and order enough inventory, they're just going to put less on the shelves. And I'm already seeing it anecdotally in some stores where you feel like, what happened here? It's Sunday afternoon. There's less supply. So you're already feeling higher prices, aisles 1 through 12 in the supermarket. You're going to feel it in import prices, obviously, with the auto tariffs, even though there's talk of loosening those. But it's this kind of rolling price increases from item to item, from sector to sector, that wears on consumers. And we're going to finally feel tapped out, spend less, and that'll slow the economy.
All right, Caleb and Gabe, thank you both.
The Trump administration is continuing its push to try and reshape higher education. On Wednesday, President Trump signed more executive orders. One seeks changes to the companies that accredit universities. Another calls for a review of the financial ties that colleges have with foreign donors. Now the president of Harvard is speaking out for the first time since the school sued the federal government. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt has that exclusive interview.
Did you have to take a deep breath before you agreed to file a lawsuit? That's a big step, especially given who you're suing.
It is a big step, and it was more than one deep breath.
That was a tough one.
It was tough.
Harvard President Alan Gerber on campus reflecting on the university's showdown with the Trump administration over its demands that the school accept government-ordered changes. Harvard accusing the administration of illegally withholding $2.2 billion in federal funding as a form of leverage. Among the list of the federal government demands, eliminate DEI programs, make broad changes to admissions and hiring practices. At the center of it all, allegations anti-Semitism on campus went unchecked.
Is this really about anti-Semitism?
I would say that at Harvard, we have a real problem with anti-Semitism. We take it very seriously, and we're trying to address it. There's no doubt about the severity of that problem. We don't really see the relationship to research funding at Harvard and other universities. They are two different issues.
Garber said he had no choice but to fight back against what he believes is government overreach.
What they are indicating is that they want to directly review who we hire on our faculty. That has implications for what kinds of views can be expressed on campus. They also want to be able to tell us who we need to fire. And they also want to intervene in our admissions processes. That is what we are objecting to.
You're taking on the most powerful man in the world.
We are defending what I believe is one of the most important linchpins of the American economy and way of life, our universities.
How much pain can Harvard absorb here?
We don't know how much we can actually absorb, but what we do know is that we cannot compromise on basic principles like defense of our First Amendment rights.
Is this bigger than Harvard at this point?
Of course it's bigger than Harvard because we look at what's at risk here. And what's at risk is the excellence of higher education in the United States, and in particular, the research mission of many of our universities, which play such a vital role in the U.S. economy and in the health and well-being of the American people.
One of Harvard's programs at risk due to the funding freeze is tuberculosis research.
If the funding were to be suddenly turned on, how quickly could you get back to your work?
It's a hard question because today we could start relatively quickly. 10 days from now, as the network unravels, the damage becomes irrevocable.
Is this a fight you can win?
I don't know the answer to this question, but the stakes are so high that we have no choice.
And our thanks to Lester Holt for that exclusive interview.
Well, efforts to end the war in Ukraine appear to be stalling. President Trump accused President Zelensky of derailing peace talks yesterday while claiming a deal with Russia was very close. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said Crimea was lost years ago and is not even a point of discussion.
He made the comments after high-level talks in London were postponed. Negotiations collapsed after Zelensky rejected a U.S. proposal that would require Ukraine to give up its claim to Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Yesterday, President Trump condemned the war while claiming that Russia is ready for it to end.
I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far, it's been harder.
Meantime, though, the fighting goes on. 9 people were killed, dozens more hurt in Kyiv in the deadliest Russian airstrikes on Ukraine's capital since last summer.
NBC News reporter Matt Bodner is with us now from London with the latest. Matt, good morning. So President Trump as we just mentioned, says he's got this deal with Russia that's close, but it seems like that does include terms that cross President Zelensky's red line, especially with regard to Crimea. Where do the negotiations to end this war stand?
Good morning, guys. Well, considering that the high-level talks planned here in London yesterday fell apart essentially at the last minute, the negotiations do appear to be at a serious impasse. What we're seeing now from the White House is a concerted attempt to pressure Ukraine into accepting something that for more than a decade now, the majority of the nation has expressly rejected. And that, of course, would be accepting Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea. The reason the White House is pushing this now is because Trump is essentially after some kind of deal that will allow him to claim that he brought peace to Ukraine. The Russians have been clear that they are not going to give up Crimea. So as things stand, it's very difficult to see meaningful progress towards a sustained peace that does not see either Russia or Ukraine concede on the Crimea question. And the White House appears to have decided it's going to pressure Kyiv instead of pressuring Moscow. But there is at least one clear way forward in the near term, and that would be Zelensky continues to push for a full-scale ceasefire, and he's trying to use that essentially to give space for larger negotiations on a settled peace. So he's going for a ceasefire now rather than a peace treaty. So that might be the way forward from here.
So, Matt, we heard President Trump say that he's actually found it more difficult to deal with President Zelensky than Putin. The last time, of course, Trump-Zelensky met was in February, that very heated public meeting at the White House. Do we know, what's next here? I mean, does President Trump have any plans to meet with Zelensky one-on-one? Where do they go from here?
So at the moment, there's no confirmed meeting between the two. Zelensky, however, is certainly trying to have another direct engagement with Trump. A little less than 2 weeks ago, Zelensky said in an interview with CBS that Trump should visit Ukraine to see the damage caused by Vladimir Putin firsthand, to see the destroyed buildings, dead children. Before committing to any course of action with regards to ending the war, Zelensky wants Trump to see that firsthand. Now, both leaders are set to attend the funeral of Pope Francis in the Vatican on Saturday. Zelensky's told reporters that he would like to have a meeting with Trump on the sidelines. So far, we've not heard anything from the White House suggesting this may happen, but Zelensky's pushing for it.
Well, President Zelensky, he cut his trip to South Africa short today because of these airstrikes in Kyiv overnight. How destructive was this attack by Russia?
Very. This was another devastating attack by Russia on civilians in Ukraine. And as usual, this was a mixed strike using drones and missiles. And it killed at least 13 people in Kyiv, according to the latest numbers, also injuring more than 70. It's also worth mentioning here that 2 weeks ago, Russia launched a ballistic missile salvo against the Ukrainian city of Sumy. This happened on Palm Sunday. It injured 35 people it killed 35 people and injured 129, among them children. And this is really why Ukraine keeps fighting. Back to you guys.
All right, Matt Bodner, thank you very much. Well, a Senate shakeup is sending shockwaves through Washington. Longtime Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin says he will not run for re-election next year. Now, Durbin is the #2 Democrat in the Senate. He was elected in 1996, nearly 30 years ago, after serving in the House for 14 years. He's an original author of the DREAM Act that gives children brought to the country illegally a path to citizenship. Now, at 80 years old, Durbin is now the 4th Senate Democrat announcing they will retire ahead of the 2026 midterms. Well, thousands of New Jersey residents are back in their homes this morning after a rare and explosive wildfire near the Jersey Shore forced evacuations and burned through more than 13,000 acres. As of last night, the Jones Road fire in southern New Jersey was about 50% contained. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has the latest.
After flames ravaged parts of southern New Jersey, bursting onto highways and spawning huge plumes of smoke, communities under siege taking solace in avoiding a worst-case scenario.
Folks' homes and lives have been saved, and we've truly averted a major disaster.
Officials say not a single house was damaged nor person injured after some 5,000 evacuated just miles from the Jersey Shore. Some in the chaos of gridlocked streets. Others helping neighbors move beloved animals.
These winds are not helping us today, and the fires are unpredictable, and when you have large animals, it makes it really scary.
But some residents remain uneasy.
We're standing on your deck right now, looking at massive plumes of smoke, and you're thinking what?
Never seen that before and never expected that in my entire life.
Brian Frankshin lives in the Lacey Township community, where so many are stunned by the proximity of the smoke column.
We were going to start unpacking because we heard the mandates were lifted, and I don't think I'm going to unpack just yet.
Got that, and then probably over here, too. Homeowners like Chris Muty aren't taking any chances. What's your biggest concern?
The homes. I mean, the homes are right there. Their fence is all melted. These gentlemen over here, they're really the unsung heroes, I guess, because they found some buckets for us.
The Garden State grateful after a close call. Sam Brock, NBC News, Ocean County, New Jersey.
Let's get more on that New Jersey wildfire with your morning news now weather.
We have Angie Lastman joining us this morning. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Let's start with that forecast for that fire weather that we, of course, are keeping such a close eye on, with that continuing to burn and now only at 50% containment. The good news is our relative humidity values, they're up. So even from this morning, we're seeing those slowly creep up. We're at 82% now. That, of course, the measure of moisture in the air, that helps us when it comes to fighting the fire. And on top of that, our winds remain calm. That's going to stay kind of the picture for us through the day today, but we'll still have a little bit of a breeze, and that means that smoke could potentially be problematic for folks across this region. We do have the concern for unhealthy air quality for sensitive groups, specifically across parts of Long Island and stretching a little farther to the east, including New York City. Now, one thing to note, anyone with lung issues, asthma, that kind of thing, it's a windows closed, stay inside kind of day. Otherwise, I think the air quality alerts will stay in effect here for probably the day today, and then we'll see those kind of slow down as that fire gets more contained. The fire weather threat, though, does last across parts of Florida today. Tampa, Orlando, Fort Myers, all included. We have that elevated risk, so we kind of have all those ingredients to see fires start and spread quickly, so we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Meanwhile, out west, and specifically in the center of the country, we've got another chance, no surprise, for some of these stronger storms to develop. It'll be basically the south central plains that we specifically look at, and that flooding threat, flash flooding, I should say, is going to be there through the day today. By tomorrow, the system's on the move. So notice it's kind of a mess, not all that organized, but we'll see this broken line of some showers and thunderstorms that work their way to the east, leave us with some rain across parts of the Ohio Valley and stretching down to the Gulf Coast. There will be a minor flood threat tomorrow, so not quite as impressive as it was today, but that's going to stretch essentially from New York down to Texas. And then we really start to see the rain ramp up across parts of New England and stretching down to the mid-Atlantic as we get into Saturday specifically. It's going to be a soggy one for our friends across the Northeast. We'll see some of that heavy rain impacting those outdoor plans for sure on Saturday before some improvements by Sunday. Today, though, here's the severe threat. Notice it stretches from parts of eastern Colorado through Kansas, Oklahoma, and down through Texas all the way to the border. Tornado threat is low, but it's the hail, it's the wind that we're really mostly concerned about. Those gusts could be anywhere from 50 to 60 plus miles per hour, and the hail an inch or larger. Big picture, look for your rainfall through Saturday. You can see where we're really focusing the heaviest of the rain. Localized amounts up to 4 inches are going to be possible. And we've had kind of a couple repeat days of rain across parts of the southern plains. Dallas, Oklahoma City included in that. And these are just some of the spots that we'll watch for the potential for some flash flooding. You can see here's the risk today. It stretches from Des Moines through Wichita, Oklahoma City, and down towards Dallas. So heads up to folks there. Meanwhile, temperatures continue to be delightful across parts of the Great Lakes and the Northeast. I've been enjoying them outdoors. We've got 80 in Baltimore today, 83 in Indianapolis, Iowa City, Paducah, Starkville, all ending up into the 80s. And we keep this going a little while longer. Tomorrow, 76 in New York, mid-70s for Roanoke as well. It'll be quite warm across the south, highs into the upper 80s for Gainesville, mid-80s for Dallas. And then as we get into the weekend, we really keep it fairly pleasant. Even that dip of temperatures from the low 70s on Saturday to the mid-60s on Sunday, that won't be bad. And we're back to the 70s in New York City on Monday. We'll see mild conditions across parts of Ohio, Indiana. Notice the 80s will be in place for parts of Texas, and high 80s at that. We get back into our next work week with 87 in Fort Worth, 90s across parts of the Gulf Coast. We've got upper 80s across parts of the Southeast, guys. So spring, I mean, I was going to say spring is here, but this feels in some spots a little more like summer.
Pre-summer.
We can't decide what we want.
Summer preview.
Yeah, summer preview. Exactly. Let's go with that. At least it feels like we're actually out of winter. It does. And yes. It's not coming back around. I know. Don't jinx us, Savannah. And the flowers are in bloom. And it's just, I'm happy. Okay. Thanks, Angie. You're welcome.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.